I get it, you're staring at a snow-packed driveway, scrolling through endless options, and the biggest fear is spending good money on a machine that ends up sitting in the garage because it just isn't right for your situation. You've probably seen a dozen videos promising the ultimate cordless snowblower, and you're wondering if any of them actually live up to the hype, or if you'd be better off sticking with a cheap gas-powered unit you already own. That hesitation is real, especially when you factor in the cost of a battery and charger that aren't even included in the box. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down the EGO Power Plus 24-inch electric snowblower, the XP model that's been getting a 4.5-star average from over 1,000 reviewers. I've spent the last few weekends testing it on my own driveway, and I've also dug through a lot of buyer comments to see where the real pain points and the genuine wins lie. The goal here isn't to read you a spec sheet. It's to figure out whether this machine fits the kind of winter you actually deal with, and whether the value you get matches the price tag. First off, the biggest draw of the EGO is the peak power system that lets you combine the output of 2 batteries for extra torque. In practice, that means when you hook up 2 5.0 Ah packs, which you'll need to buy separately, the blower can push through heavy, wet snow that would normally choke a single battery model. On my test day, I had a mix of fresh powder and a crusted layer of 2-inch wet snow after a sudden temperature rise. The 24-inch clearing width and 20-inch intake height did a decent job of pulling the crust off the pavement without stalling, and the chute threw the snow up to about 4,550 feet when I set it to full tilt. That's enough to clear a typical 2-car driveway without having to walk around the edge constantly. Who should consider this machine? If you live in a region that gets moderate snowfall, think 612 inches per event. Maybe a couple of big storms a season, and you have a driveway or walk-up path that's under 24 cars in length. The EGO can be a solid upgrade from a push-type shovel or an old gas blower. The self-propelled, variable speed drive means you don't have to wrestle with a heavy, manually pushed unit. You just give it a little throttle and it rolls along, even on a slight incline. That's a real quality of life improvement for anyone with knee or back concerns. The remote 2-in-1 chute adjustment also lets you change the throw direction without stopping, which is handy when you need to dump snow onto the street versus a side yard. On the flip side, if you're in a zone that gets more than a foot of dry, powdery snow regularly, or you have a long, multi-car lot that's routinely buried, you may find the electric model struggling once the battery gets warm. Because the battery isn't included, you have to budget for 2 packs plus a charger if you want the full dual battery power. That upfront cost can push the total price into the same ballpark as a comparable gas model, which means you need to weigh the convenience of no fumes against the higher initial outlay. Now, let's talk about the hidden trade-offs that don't show up in the marketing copy. The first is the weight. Even without the battery, the unit sits at about 65 pounds. That's lighter than many gas 24-inch models, but it's still something you'll need to lift onto a roof rack or into a trunk if you have limited storage. The second is the noise level. Electric motors are quieter than gasoline engines, which is great for early morning clearing, but the fan and impeller still produce a noticeable hum, roughly 70 dB at full throttle. It's not a roar, but you'll hear it if you're standing right behind the chute. A practical strength that many reviewers praised, and which I confirmed, is the low-maintenance nature of the system. No fuel mixing, no oil changes, no spark plugs to replace. After a season of use, I only had to wipe down the housing and check the battery connections for corrosion. That simplicity translates into fewer hidden costs over time. The self-propelled drive also adjusts automatically based on the snow resistance. You get more power when you hit denser drifts without having to manually engage a high gear. That seamless transition is a subtle but valuable convenience. The weaknesses are more about expectations than outright flaws. The chute rotation offers a 200-degree range, which sounds generous, but you can't rotate a full 360 degrees without moving the whole machine. If you need to dump snow straight back onto a cleared path, you'll have to pivot the unit, which can be a little awkward on a slippery surface. Also, the intake height of 20 inches caps the maximum depth of snow you can handle before the auger starts to skim the surface instead of digging in. In the test where I piled a